The Roots of Success podcast is for the landscape professional who's looking to up their game. We're not talking lawns or grass here. We're talking about people, process, and profits. The things deep within the business that need focus to scale a successful company. From hiring the right people and managing your team, to improving your operations and mastering your finances, we've got a brain trust of experts to help you nurture the roots of a successful business and grow to the next level. This is the Roots of Success.
Welcome to another episode of the Roots of Success podcast. I'm your host, Tommy Cole, and today we have Josh Schmieder, owner of Josh Landscape Company in Rochester, New York. Josh talks about his journey as he grew his business from the ground up. He learned so much from his wins and losses as he grew this company. Managing by the metrics has helped his team understand the numbers and hold everyone accountable. Establishing a positive company culture was key to his success as he continued to build a strong team. He says you need to know the why of your business and to always keep your mission, vision, and core values at the forefront as you grow your business. It's going to be a great episode. Let's dig into it.
Thanks, Tommy. Glad to be here.
Yeah, super excited to have you on board. You're one of my most important guests to get on since we got this thing kicked off. And I think you're a young, aggressive, humble guy, and it's good to share your story to our audience. Josh, so real briefly, you got started mowing grass, as did a lot of people back in the early 2000s, right? So about 2002.
Yep, absolutely.
Tell me about, you got started to probably get some money for college, and then things started to change. Tell me about that experience.
Yeah, so actually it was, I don't even know, 2000, well, officially in business 2002, but prior to that, I was push mowing lawns at 10 years old, like most people starting in this industry, right? So, yeah, and I just was going to work my way through college. You know, I wanted to buy an ATV back when I was 10 years old and wanted to ride with my friends, and my parents said, no, you got to work for it. So that's officially how it started back then. But then I realized it was an industry, and yeah, I was going to work my way through college and really thought, this is what I can do instead of working at the hardware store. I can continue this. I have a truck and trailer, 16, 17 years old, and decided to officially go into business 2002.
Yeah. That's how we always get started. We need a little extra cash, and so you got to go earn it, right? Never knew it'd be blow up to what it is today. Compared to that to what it is today, I mean, I would guess you've got 75, maybe 100 employees roughly, and doing mostly residential hardscape and landscape, correct?
So yeah, realized, coming out of high school, it was an industry. Went to, a certificate course for horticulture to just, kind of be able to fumble my way through. Interviewed with a local company at the time, and I wasn't quite 18 yet because I graduated a little early. And they said, well, you can shovel mulch, but you can't run power equipment. And I already had a truck and mowers, and I was offended, walking out of that interview thinking I was an adult at 17 and a half. And now I do the same thing at state law. I can't hire people that are under 18 to run power equipment. But yeah, so I walked out of that interview seeing their operations. They had offices, they had a shop, they had operations manager. And I was like, holy cow, this is an industry. I had no idea. I thought, I worked my way through college. Forget these guys. This is what I want to do. I want to be better than them someday. So our vision and our mission was kind of simple back in the early days, be better than that company. And ultimately, that's all I knew in Rochester. So the vision is similar to what it is now, is to be the best landscape company in Rochester is kind of how it started.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, fast forward, worked my way through college, did all the normal stuff, installing during the day, classes at night, took twice as long to get my degree. But I ended with my business degree. I was originally going to go for my MBA. I kind of didn't pursue that route.
Yeah.
And just kind of continued with business. Fast forward to today, we have actually 175 employees. We're budgeting 18 million in sales this year, and on track to hitting that. And we've got an awesome team. So things have changed a little bit from me and three guys to an awesome team, building some of the best outdoor living spaces in Rochester. And then we, a handful of years ago, started our commercial landscape maintenance division, which is snow and green season maintenance. And that's just about half of the company at this point. So we're just about 50-50 design, build residential and commercial landscape maintenance and snow removal.
Well, love it. Yeah. With that addition, reoccurring services, that was a game changer for you guys. That's been good. So it's not always been peachy. It's not always been, rainbows and sunshine, as we discussed earlier. It was tough, right? You're trying to look for answers of how to build an organization. I mean, I would assume you're really good at project management. That's kind of like your thing, to build the most gnarliest big projects. But the hardest part was building a team to build all that, right? And to do all those things. I mean, even making payroll is probably even a bit of a struggle, right? Tell me about some of those days that were tough.
Yeah, it's years ago. I think it was 20. So 2002 to 2010. It was me in the field with 6, 8, 10 guys. We were mowing lawns. We were, started probably 2008 doing some installs, 2007 maybe. So a few years in, 2, 3 mowing crews, put some guys in charge. I started installing out in the field, installed with 1, 2, 3 guys, figuring it out. And we were just, I don't want to say winging it, but just like everybody else, you're selling a job and you're, researching how to do it. And that's just what we were doing. I was 18, 19, 20 years old, had a lot of good mentors, from our reps, for our stone reps and things like that, from Unilock to Deco Block and, and coaching us through it. And so it was easy in a sense to make money when you're out doing the work yourself. You can screw a lot of stuff up and still make some money. So 2002, 2004, 6, 7, 8, it was a lot easier because it was me and a handful of guys. I was involved in everybody. I hired everybody. I worked alongside everybody. And the challenge started probably at the end of 2010, early 2011. We were scaling. We were probably doing million at the time, million two. Had 10, 15 guys still working in the field, some doing a lot of sales, coming out of the field a little bit. And we knew we needed a facility. And so we were looking for a shop, and we kind of found a shop. It was up for auction. I took all of the savings that I had at that point, put it for a down payment, created, took out a mortgage on it, and found this central location that we felt was good. And when we did that, we were running out of some barns in the middle of nowhere at the time, but when we did that, kind of came onto the spotlight of the scene, right? And so everybody was like, oh my gosh, these guys, we kind of blew up. We went from $1 million, $1.2 million to $2 million in 1 year.
Yeah.
Which is a huge amount of growth when it's you and a handful of guys.
Right.
To, now at 2 million, you got to start having some structure, infrastructure, managers, So that 2011 into 2012 was a really tough growing experience. And it was probably the toughest 1 to 2 years of my life, just because of the like you said, making payroll to, just the culture. It was easy. Culture was easy. I didn't even know culture existed because it was me and a dozen guys, and I knew everybody, but once I started to become a little more separated, it became much more challenging. We had no metrics. We didn't really know our pricing. We weren't recovering our overhead. I had my accounting courses through college. I might have even graduated at that point. Probably. Yeah, I did graduate at that point. And I really had no tools to really run a business at doing $2+ million in sales. And I can tell you that it was tough. It was really tough.
So much for that business degree, right?
Yeah, didn't really do so much.
Yeah. This is the real world. It's fascinating to think, us landscapers, we get in this business because we're good with our hands, right? We can design things, we can build stuff and turn over, and the rewards are just fascinating to develop a product within weeks or months or a year, and all of a sudden it's just boom, it's there. The hardest part about business is all behind the scenes of all that, right? Of the installation and the maintenance behind the scenes of managing people and hiring people and systems and processes and software and facility, you name it, safety. It's all encompassing, which is tough. I get it. It's something that you become very aggressive to go after, and you're like, holy crap, what did I just sign up for? Is this even for me? Mm-hmm. Those days are tough. Tell me about you were teetering it with the peer groups a little bit. I think at some point, like what there was a trigger saying, I should probably find some maybe people smarter than I am and figure out what everybody else is doing, or I'm the only person out there in the world that may be struggling or need to know a little bit of advice, right? And I think, you had some conversations with Marty and his team, and you're like, man, I need to do something, right?
Yeah, so actually during that period, and I'll give a little shout out to Marty as well, because he was
Yeah,
instrumental in the earlier years and still is. Still look up to Marty. And
absolutely.
and so back in the day, actually a friend of my dad's work, how I got connected to that, I was probably 17, 18 years old, maybe 19 at the time. Had just started the business officially. And my dad comes home from work. I was working on my parents' garage. And that's kind of where I started, obviously, like anybody else at that age. And so my dad comes home with a book and he's like, hey, I was telling my friend at work how you're starting your own landscape business. He's like, oh, you know what? I just saw this book online or wherever he got it. It's about this guy who started just kind of like your son's starting out. And it was Marty's book. And so I was all excited. I read the book. It was literally like, my story of how Marty started. It's very similar. So I really connected with it. So I end up Googling Marty and finding out that he holds these. They were called boot camps at the time, years ago. And so it was his yearly, what is now called grow, so. And so I signed up for his boot camp and I went to one of his earlier boot camps and I got a ton out of it. I met Marty, in my mind was, this big celebrity. I read his book. He was a published author and Marty took a little bit of interest in me. And it was honestly a pretty big game changer. So continued going to his yearly things. A few years later, it was around the 2011 mark, I forget when it was, but Marty approached me and said, hey, I'm starting a second peer group with Matt Russo. Do you want to join that peer group? And so I got involved in the peer groups back in those earlier days. And honestly, there were some ups and downs I can share even, and I'm sure Marty wouldn't mind. He's told the story. Yeah. How when I was going through the struggles, I got kind of mad at Marty because he kind of shot straight with me and kind of told me I need to stop.
You didn't want to hear.
Oh, yeah, I definitely didn't want to hear it. And but we were really making payroll at the time. We couldn't make payroll. It was Thursday. I remember, Marty did a call with me and check in, and I was upset. I didn't know I was making payroll the next day. I was literally probably in tears. I was choking up on the phone, like, I don't know how I'm making payroll. And Marty's getting frustrated because I've been having this problem for the last 6 months in 2011, right? So. And Marty, I keep blaming everybody else. I've got these sales guys. I've got, this guy's ripping me off. This guy's underselling work. I've got my crews that are milking the clock out in the field. I've got this, I've got that, everybody else's fault. And, Marty just finally stops me and he's like, all I hear is you blaming everybody else, and I'm paraphrasing. And he said, you need to stop blaming everybody else, but you need to take responsibility. He's like, he didn't say this, but I knew what he was getting at, which is what made me mad. He was kind of sick of hearing me complain about everybody else. And here I am saying everybody else is my problem. And he's like, you need to who hired those people? He said, it's like, who hired that manager? Who hired that sales guy? Who hired those guys out in the field? He's like, you did. He's like, it's your fault. Everything is your fault. And he's like, and until you can accept that, you're wasting my time. You're wasting your time. Either figure it out or quit and come work for me, because I'll hire you in a heartbeat. And so I was pretty upset. I'm like, Marty, it's not fair. You go home to your beautiful house at night. I can't even make payroll tomorrow. And you're telling me everything's my fault. I hired you as a consultant and as your peer group to help me, and you're not helping me. And so
it's all your fault. It's all your fault.
And that was Marty's fault.
Yeah.
That was Marty's fault.
Yeah.
So I borderline hung up the phone on him. I think I wasn't rude enough to actually hang up, but I was pretty upset, and we hung up. We ended the conversation. And with me, I can't hold a grudge. So after a few minutes, I'm sitting there in my truck, because I remember the phone call, sitting in my truck thinking, and, after a few minutes of letting the emotion wear off, I'm like, that's true. I did hire those guys. I did hire that crew. I did. And I'm like, Marty's right. I do need to take the responsibility, so, and that was honestly a huge turning point.
So that was the turning point at that point, right? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it didn't solve our issues, but it was definitely, that's where things started to shift. Right.
Yeah.
So that was a turning point where it was kind of where I realized, if it's my fault, now I can fix it. Right. Extreme Ownership is a great book that everybody should read. But So Marty was kind of trying to put pressure on me to teach that lesson, because I was young in my early 20s and I had to learn that tough lesson, so that honestly was a big change and kind of started the process of fixing the problems.
Yeah. It's crazy to think, Josh, but there's a lot of old Joshes out there like that, right? There's a lot of, man, it's the facility's fault. It's the machine's fault. It's the person's fault. And oftentimes we don't look at ourselves in the mirror to try to get things right centered, right? It's hard. I get it. I want to talk about a couple things that are, dear to you that I've noticed over the course of several years working with you. But your leadership team, you've developed and hired all that entire staff that you've got there at your company, and they essentially sort of run that. Explain what the leadership team means to you.
Yeah, so we're entering a new phase of business. So we went through a lot of growing pains. I came out of that era in 2011 and, fixed a lot of things from culture to core values and we really, Marty and Matt Crusoe were instrumental in helping kind of get on the right track with all that. And since 2013 on, we've been profitable and we've grown basically from 2 million to 18 million over the last, from 2013. So what is that? Yeah, 10 years, nine to 10 years. And so we're entering kind of a new phase, and I'll be lying if I say I have the leadership team figured out, because kind of stepping back and working more into a CEO role and really understanding what a CEO and having a true leadership team, that's something we implemented this year.
Yeah.
And that leadership team is where I'm trying to honestly let go. And it's, my team will tell you, and I wish I could sit here and say, yeah, Tom, I've got it all figured out.
Yeah.
My leadership team runs everything perfectly. I sit back as CEO and let me teach you guys how to do it. I wish I could do that, but unfortunately I can't. So a leadership team to me, as I'm learning this process of kind of this new phase of business, of really letting go of the reins and putting these pieces into place for this next phase, is the leadership team is somebody that we come together monthly. We're working towards over the last handful of months to really help them understand every piece of the business. It's, my finance manager, it's my HR, it's my GM of my maintenance, it's my ops manager, my controller, my culture director and trainer. And we come together once a month and really we're sculpting the direction of the company. And I want them to be empowered to be able to make the decisions and to be able to bring perspective to the table and to help make those tough decisions and to help guide the direction of the company based on our vision and our goals that we've set up, our 5, 10, 5 and 1 year plan, and to really be involved in the direction of the company. So, that's kind of, as we're implementing that's where we're going with it, and really trying to empower our team to take ownership and to ultimately be the ones with the reins, as I am being coached to back off by my team and by our peer group. That's kind of the next phase of business for us. And
that
for lessons
letting go is extremely hard, Josh. You put every ounce of energy and time and money, draining your savings account, to get that first facility. Letting go is extremely hard. But I think you're realizing now, and have been realizing, that you got to put a team together that is way more achievable to do in a larger group than just one person. What you can achieve with a leadership team is 10 times greater than what you can achieve by yourself. And you're learning that. That's no easy task, right? But you see the benefits years from now of what this is going to bring for Josh Landscape.
Oh yeah. And if we do another podcast in a few years, just like the story of the tough period of time in 2011, I have a lot of things that we did that I know exactly what we did to fix that problem. And at the time we were figuring it out, but now I can look back, and honestly, I look back at that time as like, I wouldn't trade that for the world. At the time I was a little frustrated and almost bitter. coming out of that, like, why do I have to have it so hard? Other people, it comes so easy and natural. I'll honestly say if I didn't go through that time, we would never have gotten the foundation figured out of what we needed to be able to make it to the level we're at now, And so I look at this next phase of leadership team and letting go and becoming a true CEO of the company and coach and understanding that it's a different mindset. You go from doing and to being a part of, selling the most amount of work, to all that stuff, to now having to turn all the reins over from a sales manager we're implementing to, the leadership team, to general manager, to all those different things. And in 3, 4, 5 years, I'm going to look back and say, man, all those tough things that we did to, push me to let go and empower my team. I know it's going to work, but I'll be able to probably give you some great stories of real life examples of why it works, because we'll be a little further down the road. But I know it's going to work. I've seen it work for others, and it's already working as we're getting into that process now.
Yeah, you've built up some really good, solid team members on your staff. Those are some good anchors that you've developed and sort of groomed along the way. And I think several of them are ready to take the next step, right? And you've accepted your role now as more of a mentor, a coach, long-range vision for the company, right? And you've accepted that challenge, which is extremely hard to develop. There's a lot of landscape companies out there that are still in early phases along the way of building their team. They're looking for their first manager hire, and how scary that is, right? And that's no easy task. So you've been able to hire some really good, solid people, good cultured people on your team and grow it from there. That's been fascinating.
Yeah, I think it's a huge part of, whether people listening are $1 million company or $20 million company, is just finding those people. And when we kind of cleaned house in 2011 and got rid of anybody who didn't fit our culture, and our core values and the culture that we wanted to build as we were figuring that piece of it out, and really hiring those who fit our core values, it's crucial. And to surround yourself and hire those people, and hire fast and hold accountable. Jim always says, you've got to hire those people and then hold them accountable. And if they aren't the right fit, then it's fine, replace and start over. And that was a big challenge. Is it took us a few rounds of people to find the right managers or find the right operations guys to, but you just got to jump in and do it. But find the right people, and don't tolerate the behavior if it's not the right people, because the culture and the people on your team is going to make or break, where you go. And it's something we always have to keep looking at. So
yeah, love it. Josh, there's these little quotes going around saying, hire slow and fire fast, right? And we don't agree. We don't like that motto of being a fired culture. We love the motto of, hire slow and hold them accountable. And then they'll either rise to the occasion or they'll work themselves out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You are huge on metrics. Like, one of the biggest ones I've known in the industry. There's always a metric for something. And I'm fascinated with that. You're hot on operational software. That's been pretty good for you, but you want to know the metrics of what we got to measure by, and in order to make good business decisions, not just based on gut. Talk about some of those metrics that you use to run your business.
Sure. Yeah. Back in 2011, I keep referring back to this because that, honestly, 2011 was that big change, right? So we went from being me and a dozen guys to running a professional business. And that 2011 and 2012 was that pivotal shift. And so back in we'll call it 12, because as we were coming out of it in 2012, early 2013, as Matt Crusoe and Marty and those were, instrumental in helping me through that. The cultural piece, the metrics piece, that was the other piece of it, right? So we started having we call them management meetings every Friday, because I was the only one really pulling the car up the hill, right? So I needed to get others who are now on the team, the right people that were on the team, to really start seeing the numbers and being able to make decisions. And so we figured out, a half a dozen numbers, 5, 6 numbers a week that we look at as a management team. We're very transparent. We do open book management. We will show every number that we have, as long as the person we're showing it to, we have time to teach what it means. Yeah. And so we're very big on transparency. We don't share some things because some things we just don't have the time right now to teach it. Right. So things aren't misconstrued. So our management meetings that we have, we look at 5 or 6 numbers, our efficiency scores. We look at our incoming revenue or our collections, our cash incoming for the week, our cash outgoing for the week. So we project both of those so we can make sure that we're in a good cash position. Like I said, the efficiency labor percentage to overall revenue on a weekly basis. So that's a percentage. So if you spend $100 in labor and you collect 1,000, you're 10% labor percentage. That's a huge thing. And we know budget wise what that should be running a week on our install and on our maintenance to make sure our labor is staying in line. We look at the total.
Josh, is that report, is that through your your operational software? Is that through your financial software or what?
Yeah. So unfortunately the software we're using is, we feel we're outgrowing it. So we have to do things manually, and we're looking at some other softwares that we might be making some changes to. But that being said, the metric that we get, it's a simple metric from payroll, and then our QuickBooks accounting, our finance manager has those numbers. She brings them to the meetings every Friday for us. So, so we're looking at our labor percentages. We're looking at the amount of work billed. How much work did we bill this last week? We're looking at cash that we collected this last week. We want to know what we brought in last week to see if we hit our goal, and how much we spent last week, how much money went out of the bank account on a cash basis. And then we have our P&L, our profitability, and our top line revenue. And then our projected outgo and our projected income on a cash basis for the next week. And in our management team, we look at those numbers. They bring the numbers for each project manager, and each ops manager brings their expense potential reports for the next week of what they're expecting, as well as what we should be ready to bill and collect for progress payments. So every Friday we get together and we have a snapshot of what we did the week before, what we should be doing the next week, and we can slowly or quickly fix any issues on a weekly basis. We don't wait for the end of the month to close it out to find out we lost.
Love it. It's about the past. It's about the past, present, future in that current week, right? So what was completed this week? What are the metrics this past week? What are we working on right now? And then how does that project into the next week versus 2 weeks into the next month to see how the previous month went? Too late to make changes.
Yeah. Exactly. So we can watch those trends. Not that, you're going to have the ups and downs, progress payments with projects, waiting for, certain big commercial clients to pay, things like that. But you can watch the trends. And with 1 or 2 weeks, you can see, our labor percentage is running high this week. Well, it could be in between progress payments. And then the next week it's running high. And the next week it's running high. At that point, it's like, okay, guys, we have the tough conversation. What's happening with labor? Why are we running high? And we can understand the story, right? So then we can, because, we're on 4 big projects, more than normal. And next week we're going to see that percentage way lower than normal, and they're like, okay, so it'll average out. Or that's not the case. And we're going to say, okay, what do we need to do to correct it? We don't want to wait till the end of the month. What's happening? So, and it just keeps those conversations present and open.
Yeah. And plus it's building your leadership team, right? To watch those metrics every single week. I mean, in a perfect scenario, what if you don't show up for those couple, 2-3 weeks, right? Those numbers can still be produced. They can still be analyzed by your leadership team, because it's sort of part of your culture to review that and see how we're progressing. Nothing's better than metrics. That's what gets improved, right? So
if you can measure it, you can improve it, right? I think that's what others have said in the past. Stole that from somebody as well. You'll find that pretty much everything I do I've stolen from somebody. So I wish I was smart enough, or I was
stolen.
Able to say.
It's borrowed. We're borrowing it, right?
Yeah. I wish I was able to say I'm extremely intelligent and I came up with all this on my own. But
so I'm with you. I'm just not that. Yeah. I'm just you. I'm not that clever to come up with these things, but I'm like, man, that's a catchy phrase. We should do that too.
Yep. I grab it. I constantly taking notes. I'm constantly learning from others, and I'll borrow anything. So
yeah. Well, that's the power of being in a good network of people to share everything, right? In order to share the successes and the failures that have been with everybody's organization, right? That's where you can learn the most. I get it. Metrics are something I'm a huge fan of. You got 5 to 6 of them that you're extremely dedicated to see every single week. I'm strongly believe in the metrics versus the gut. And so on several of your site visits that have been up to your facility, it's measured pretty closely in those meetings every week. It's measured on the TV screens and the boards as you walk around the offices. So it's very apparent. You love to share those numbers with everybody so they can figure out their score if they're doing something good or they need a lot of work on, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'll be transparent. We're having a little bit of a efficiency issue right now. This last 6 weeks, 4 to 6 weeks. The difference is we know it immediately, and we're able to start looking at, is it a sales issue, how we're selling it? Is it a crew issue, the way we're managing and our crew's efficiency out in the field? And so the benefit is we don't wait till the end of the year to realize we lost money. We're able to see it immediately, and we're able to start working on correcting it and making the tweaks that we need, right away. So
tell me about your facility and kind of how it flows now. You're bursting out the seams, where your current place is now, and you've kind of moved, you've got another separate facility and stuff like that. But how has that transformed your business as far as the morning rollout, right? We talk about, when trucks get out the gate and how fast they get out of the gate. Are they prepared? Are they loaded? To where they park the trucks, to all that. That equates to all the efficiency factors. Tell me more a little bit about that.
Yeah, so we track what we call our gate time as well. So unbillable time is the worst thing that you can have in any kind of labor-driven business, right? So the faster we can get in and get out in the morning, the better off it'll be. So yeah, our gate time and the way that we do that is we track every crew as they leave the shop. We have somebody at the gate wishing everybody a good day, to have a good day. We have a quick little checklist that we go over: safety vests to our seat belts to checking over the trucks as they roll out. And we track that because we need to hold everybody accountable. Otherwise, our crews would be here for 2 hours in the morning. So it takes us, our goal this month is 23 minutes to roll out. And that's from the time they clock in to our huddle to rolling out. And we were in June, I think we were 25 and a half minutes. And so we know that last year we were achieving 23 minutes. And so we've got a little bit of work to do this last month or two. It's kind of crept up. But again, another metric that we're able to watch and see how we're doing and to correct it. So as far as our facility, we try to plan it out. We've done a fair amount of work around the facility. We are just completely full. I've toured other facilities, Tim Trimmer and our peer group. He makes us look like we have a ton of space.
Yeah, he does.
A small area.
Yeah.
But as far as for us, we have our trucks kind of all lined up on one side, where our mulch bins are located. We have a load crew that comes in the morning. So at 6 o'clock in the morning, we have 2 or 3 guys that come in ahead of time. We fill out load slips the night before. So every ops manager and our crew leads communicate to our ops managers, and our ops managers fill out those load slips the night before. And then our load team in the morning, along with one of my operations managers, they get all the trucks loaded before anybody clocks in before 7 a.m. And so when it comes time for our crew leads to get here, they check over the truck, they do their pre-trip inspection, make sure everything's secured in their truck. And then ultimately we have our huddle, and they should be, the goal, leaving the huddle, going right to their trucks and rolling out that gate check.
Yeah, that's good. I think one time I was there, you guys had a morning huddle. You had a gentleman there. I can't remember. He was so positive. I don't know if he sang or danced or something. It was just like goosebumps fun. on your morning huddle there in the shop. I thought it was awesome. The energy was great. Hopefully he's still there.
Yeah, we've got a lot of great people, and we've perfected our huddles. We do split our maintenance and our install team just because of the size. So then as you grow, the challenge is to keep that culture from not becoming disconnected, one huddle versus another huddle. So that's something to be aware of as your huddle grows. But yeah, we've got a lot of great people that contribute a lot. Those huddles are game changers. Keeps the culture kind of in check.
That's good. That culture piece is pretty cool. You've got a gentleman there that's in becoming in charge of culture. I don't think years ago you would have even thought of something like that at all. Tell me the importance of culture in an organization, but yet now you're putting more emphasis on it with someone sort of leading the charge, and that's the day-to-day culture, and that's the holistic large component of the culture for the year and more years coming down. Why is that so important for you and your organization?
Yeah, honestly, when the peer group came up and did the site visit this last time, I've had a couple of them, but we had a great visit and took away a lot of good things that we can be working on. One of those things was taking my planting operations manager and promoting him to our culture and full-time training director.
Yes.
And so that's something since last fall we've been working on. We've found his replacement. He's now moved into that role and weaning out of his other role as an operations manager, and really having somebody focusing and working with our HR manager on culture and really, as we've grown, again, it was easy back when it was just me and a dozen guys, but as we've grown, it's hard for me to really be in tune with everybody and in touch with everybody. I can learn everybody's names and, but 175 people, it's just impossible to be everywhere, so having somebody in charge, and that's what was pointed out at the peer group visit, was that having somebody involved who's intentional, in touch, in tune, that's what their purpose is. It just helps keep that culture on point, so we're not drifting and we end up in a position where it's like, what happened? How did our culture get? We used to be so good at culture. How did it get here? And so as I'm moving more into that CEO role, and yes, I drive culture, it starts with me, but somebody who's out interacting with the crews, making site visits, we're all in charge of culture. All of our managers should be, but somebody who's working with our managers to instill that culture and that vision that myself and our team have had for years, but making sure somebody's really heading that up and sharing that culture and making sure it's implemented through all of our managers, ultimately through all of our teams. And we feel like that's a game changer as well. It's an expense that, you can look at as a cost, but honestly, shoot, I don't know, culture, you can't put a cost on keeping your culture. Yeah. It's so important.
It's incredibly important. And for you to focus on that at this size is very, very important. And I think you've got the right person lined up for that. The guy is just a magnet, and everyone feeds off of his energy. And when you got someone like that, you can capitalize, and he'll go all the way from down to the team member, all the way to the CEO of spreading the positivity around, which is great.
Yeah, Neil is great, and we're even kind of tying that culture role into a director of training role as well. It's going to be a combined position, and our training program, our Josh Landscape University program that we're implementing and developing, we've decided that it's not just training how to prune and how to plant trees and those types of things. Neil has been doing a great job of developing leadership training as well, because it's our job to develop our team and turn them into great leaders, right? So that culture position, the more we can develop leaders, the better our culture is going to be. And so his position, that is that training and culture role, is helping to develop those leaders and to give them the proper tools to be good leaders, whether you're a team lead out in the field, or manager, or junior manager, or senior manager. It's just really giving our team those tools. And we realize it's not just about being in tune with the culture, but helping develop those leaders. And we've been seeing huge effects just from the last 4 or 5 months of doing the leadership training that we're doing monthly. And and just helping people have those tools, helping our team have those tools to go to the next level. And it's a game changer for sure.
Yeah, love it. Training is something we don't spend enough time in organizations, and the importance of it. You almost can't put a dollar figure to that at all, but companies like Chick-fil-A, they do it all the time, right? They're constantly training, they're constantly onboarding, they're constantly watching the culture. And you can always compare yourself to Chick-fil-A. They do something very good there. And so you're replicating that model up there in Rochester. Josh, so as we sort of put a bow on this conversation here, a lot of great feedback for our audience. Any sort of one nugget advice for anyone out there that is, maybe they're just in a rut of where's the end of the line? Where's the end of the light? And how do I get there? And how do I keep going? And all that. Any last bit of advice?
Yeah, I would just say from my experience, that's all I can really share is, is if you're struggling, you're in that rut, there's a few things that really got us out of that tough spot. And, people we were struggling making payroll back in the day, right? But other people might be struggling keeping people employed, or is it, whatever your struggle is, as an entrepreneur in this industry, it might be 10 million, it might be $500,000. But really, I think it boils down to a handful of things that business is hard and complicated, but yet it can be kind of simple. And if you understand your mission, vision, core values, and these are the things that really turned us around. If you understand your mission, what you're going to do on a daily basis to achieve your vision, right? And you have that foundation of your core values of who you're going to hire and fire, what's that foundation that you're going to hire against? You figure out your ideal service, your ideal client, and you focus on your team and just hiring the right people. And when that happens and you really surround yourself with those good people, things change. So if you're stuck in that rut, you don't know how to get out of it. Figure out one, what's your why? What's your company why? Which is kind of that vision, right? And figure out where do you want to go in the next 10 years, and then figure out who's going to help you get there. And you do those things, you really get serious about the mission, vision, core values, your ideal service, ideal client, and building a great culture by hiring the right people. It's you're going to get to where you want to go. And whatever that issue that you're struggling with, I find that almost every issue boils down to those few things. You're doing things you shouldn't be doing in your business, or you have the wrong people on the team, or you lost sight of where you're going, so. And it's constantly, we have those same struggles still. We haven't arrived, but we're constantly watching it, and we're constantly trying to grow and perfect each of those areas.
No, that's great. Business is a journey, right? There's not all of a sudden like I've arrived, like you said. It's not all of a sudden I've made it. It's a long marathon journey, and there's going to be some gloomy, gray, crappy days, like guaranteed. But when you have those crappy days where you just feel exhausted and worn out, that's where you learn the most, right? In 2011, you learned a ton. And prior to 2011, from 02 to probably 11, you just were, beat up like a dog and can't find your way back home. And so that's what's got you to where you are today. And if you didn't go through what you went through in 02 to 11, I'm pretty set that you wouldn't be here, today. And
absolutely.
For you to focus on that vision, core values, and all those find your why. All that is people in ruts. You can be several months in a rut or a year or two, and it's hard, man. This is not made for everybody. So, but keep hitting it hard. You'll be there.
And then that's what I'll say also is that I look back and trust we have not arrived. The bigger you get and the more employees and the bigger the team grows, the more you realize how incapable you are as a leader, right? So that's not me being negative. It's just
it's humble.
Your ego is going to get in the way. People think, oh, you're running a big company, you deserve to do X, Y, or Z. And it's like, no, it becomes even more important as a leader than back when it was me and a dozen guys. Right. So, so you just realize how humbling it is and how important it is to lead the team properly, and how you need to seek out that advice and that coach and the people that have gone in front of you, because life is short. You don't have a lifetime to learn. If I can learn it in half the time, we'll go that much further, put the ego aside. But yeah, it's something that just focusing on those simple things and taking care of your team is so important, and it's, I can't put enough emphasis on that.
Yeah, I love it. It's all about the team at the end of the day. And now your job is becoming the mentor and coach for your team, right? And help them get through those tough spots that they could encounter every day. Yeah. Josh, man, it's been a pleasure again to have you. Sort of wanted this day to come for a very long time, and it's here. So maybe we'll just do a yearly podcast with you with just some cool nuggets and things that you've done well and not so well, right? We'll go through those. Those will be fun.
We'll do a few extras for the things I haven't done well, because there's a lot of that stuff. But
leave some extra time for that.
Yeah.
It's been a pleasure, Josh.
It's awesome.
Yep,
absolutely. I appreciate having me on, and it's an honor to be here. And looking forward to seeing you guys soon.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you so much. We'll see you soon.
Ready to take the next step? Download our free profitability scorecard to quickly create your own baseline financial assessment and uncover the fastest ways to improve your business. Just go to mcfarlandstanford.com/scorecard to get yours today. To learn more about McFarland Stanford, our best-in-class peer groups, and other services, go to our website at mcfarlandstanford.com, and don't forget to follow us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. See you next time on The Roots of Success.